Hey, welcome to the Milwaukee Music Lessons podcast. My name is Alex Bennett.
And I'm Robin Bennett.
And we are officially on to episode number 7. Can you believe it? It's like we were just born the other day. We're going on to a new topic today. We are talking about things I wish I knew when I started. That might range anything from when I started playing an instrument to even maybe a little bit of when I started teaching. So anyways, join us on our little roller coaster ride as we kind of start with our journeys and things I wish I would have known in hindsight. So, do you want to go first? You want me to go first?
I'm just trying to think of things I wish I would have known. I think the biggest thing for me is I wish I would have known how important practicing was. Like, I was pretty good at doing things off the cuff. I didn't practice a lot. And I wish I had practiced more. And that's more of a, I wish I had done this in hindsight.
Sure.
But I wish I would have known how much better I would have gotten if I practiced just a little bit every day.
Sure. Yeah. And I think also just to kind of add on to that too, how much more busy your schedule gets as you become an adult.
Yeah.
It's like when you're a kid.
And scheduling it in.
Yeah, when you're a kid, and I hear this all the time from kids, they're like, I don't have any time. And it's like, okay, let's go through your day, hour by hour. Let's figure out. And so we'll start doing the math, and they'll tell me like, oh, I got to do this. And okay, how long does that take? I got to do this. How long does that take? And then they go through the whole litany of like everything they have. And like, okay, so everything you just described was 11 hours. Like, what is happening with the other 5 hours of your day that you don't have 15, 20 minutes to practice your instrument?
Sure.
You know, and then the next time they'll come in and they'll get busted because they'll be like, you know, how was your week? Oh, it was great. I did this great thing in Roblox. I did this great thing in Fortnite. And I'm like, oh, cool. Did you practice?
Did you practice?
No, I didn't have time.
You just spent your time on something dumb, which I definitely did as a kid.
100%.
I spent my time on things that in hindsight were dumb.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And I mean, anybody who's been into our basement understands how much video games
Correct.
that I have in this basement. I think 287 games I own at my last count. It's probably slightly higher than that, honestly, because I haven't updated the list in a while. We might be hitting 300. But you understand, like I understand for sure, you know, the time spent on certain things. I feel like for me, I spent way more time wasting my 20s than I did my teens, personally.
Sure.
I felt like I was way more efficient with my time as a teenager. Maybe efficient isn't the right... Well...
I did a lot of stuff in high school.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say that I didn't do a lot of stuff. I mean, I definitely practiced at school because I was there all the time. You know, I stayed late for all the activities, so I just practiced while I was still there. So that gave me an excuse to already do it, you know.
Okay. I think maybe what I'm figuring out as I'm going through this idea in my head is I think I was much better at cramming when I was a teenager. I was very good at the art of procrastination. And
I'm still very good at it.
And cramming at the last possible second. Whereas, like, once I got into my mid-20s, I kind of found a spot of comfort. And I can't tell you how much time I feel like I wasted in that area. So,
in your 20s?
Yeah.
Like
mid to early 20s. Just, you know, you spend, when you're in school, you have a lot of things that are scheduled for you.
Correct.
And then once you become an adult, like in our case, you know, you're an entrepreneur, you're self-employed in my case. You know, I've held very few jobs that weren't self-made between the time I graduated when I was 22 till now. You know, I can count them on one or two fingers. Sure. And so when you're an entrepreneur, you make your own time.
Right.
There's nobody behind you like pushing you to go.
Forcing you to do it.
Right. Yeah. So there was definitely a spot early in my 20s where it was like, finally, I'm free to do what I want. And, you know, I didn't have a lot of responsibilities. You know, I was sharing a house with two other guys, the bachelor pad, triple A's.
Yep. Oh, I remember.
And I know that's how we met. And so the rent was cheap, and basically all I didn't have any real expenses other than like my student loans. I had my car was paid, everything else was paid. I had a nice nest egg, and so it was like I can kind of just screw around for a while. And I almost think that was actually to my detriment, honestly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we're getting off topic here. We're
Yeah, we
talking
are.
about different things. Okay, so things for me that were like I wish I would have known when I first started was how non-linear progress is.
Yeah.
You when you first show up, you kind of have this idea of like every day we're going to make a little bit of progress. And that's true on a surface level, but what you see on the other side, it's like it's a law of I don't want to say of diminishing returns, but it's like if you try to melt an ice cube, and the temperature in the room is 27 degrees, and you change the temperature to 28 degrees, and nothing happens, right? Like the temperature changed, you are getting closer to your goal, but on its surface, the ice cube
didn't change.
has not changed at all, and so that can be really frustrating because you do that repeatedly. And it's really easy for a lot of people to like start at 26 degrees, 27, they get to like 30, and then they stop. And it's like, man, if you had just gone another degree or two further, you would start to see that ice cube melt.
Right.
And and then you're making progress. But you don't see it that way. So I also like often compare with my students how I see their progress versus the way that they see their progress. They look at their progress like they're watching the paint dry.
Sure.
And so they're constantly looking at it versus I show up after a week and I'm like, oh, wow, the paint is much drier. And they're going, are you sure? I've been staring at it for 7 days straight. Like, why? The paint looks the exact same to me. It's like, yeah, well, if you don't walk away from it and come back 7 days later, you don't see it that way.
It's like people who you only see once a year or twice a year. They're like, oh my gosh, you're so big. And you're like, I don't notice any changes.
I've been dieting, gosh.
You know what I mean?
I know
like
what you mean,
when you're a kid and you go and see relatives and they're like, wow, you've changed so much, and you don't notice the change because you live with it every day. But someone who just checks in with you every 6 months, they can really see that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to zoom out.
Yeah, I found my old college ID the other day, and I was like, who's that homeless guy?
I gave it to Jay.
That's good. Throw it away. It's a historical.
I'm not throwing it away.
I know.
He's going to play with it. And I'm going to tell him, that's your dad.
Avoid this at all costs.
Please.
All right? The Berkeley part and the look part.
Ooh. Pay for it yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
What are some things that you wish you had known when you started teaching?
I've touched on this in another podcast episode, but not giving people too much to chew on.
Same.
Yeah, your thought as a teacher is, what if I don't give them enough? What if they're not satisfied with all the stuff? And it's like 95% of the time, it's the exact opposite direction. You're giving people too much to work on. So
that's kind of what I would say. Between that and just like connection with students is really helpful. Just, hi, how are you? How is your day? Like, it doesn't have to be the whole lesson, but at least a couple minutes of like, are you okay?
People appreciate the community aspect of things, It was hard for us to switch gyms not that long ago because it was taking so long for how much we were traveling for it that it became not worth it. But it's like, gosh, I like the place and I like the people.
I like the people there. Yeah.
That was really hard to do. So, it happens. So, yeah. How about anything that you wish, anything other than like the community side of things or anything else?
I mean, my professors in college would say beg, borrow, and steal everything you can. So I definitely learned that, where it's like, you don't have to come up with everything on your own.
Sure.
So many people have done it before.
Right.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Stand on the shoulders of the people who have gone before you.
Right. So I think the biggest thing for me starting in lessons has just been, don't try and make everything from scratch. Use what you have.
Yeah.
Use what you have and let that, and most of the time it's more than enough.
Mm-hmm.
Just going through that.
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to kind of our original premise of like when we first
started playing an instrument.
I think learning how important it is to relax when you play. It's so counterintuitive, the adrenaline rips through you, especially when you're performing for other people, and you get all clammy and shaky.
Oh my gosh.
And your brain is in a million different places, and so much, you watch the guys who were good and you're like, oh, they make it look so easy. It's like, yeah, it's because they're relaxed, A, and B, they've also just figured out the shortest distance from where they're at to where their goal is, how they move, things like that. It's very much, Neil Peart had a whole thing on it in the Rush documentary, Beyond the Lighted Stage, where he took time off from drumming because he was so metronomic. He was so on point with his timing, but somehow or another it came off as stiff.
Sure.
And he was trying to figure out how to change that. And so the first thing he did was he went to visit Freddie Gruber, who's a renowned jazz drummer, and they talked about how, when you watch somebody who's a dancer, it's not necessarily about the timing. It is about the timing, but it's also about the motion between things and that fluidity. And there's something almost intangible about that when you're on an instrument, because you can tell, even without seeing the person, if you just listen to the way that it's recorded, the difference between somebody who's playing relaxed versus somebody who's playing stiff.
Sure.
So, but that's easier said than done.
Definitely.
You can't tell somebody just relax and like that'll
fix it.
The
amount of times that I've accompanied just a children's choir and I'm still like stiff, clammy, fighting for the notes. It's a kid's performance. I do not matter at all. I am off in the corner, but I'm still like, oh my gosh, you gotta get this right.
Yeah.
In hindsight, they're not going to remember what I did. They're going to remember what the kids did. So that's another thing that I wish I knew when I was starting is, and we touched on this a couple podcasts ago, but when you're on stage, you just keep going.
Yeah.
People will not notice a lot of mistakes if you make one, but you keep the flow going and you just pick up later down the line. One of the biggest things from when I did classroom teaching was I would accompany the choir and stuff on piano, and a lot of the times I would just, like, my left hand would not do what I wanted it to do, and so I'd stop with the left hand, keep going with the right, and then when the time was right, I'd bring back the left hand in, So it's like, technically I'm not on a stage, but technically I'm still performing, and it's like I'm in the corner. No one is looking at me, and I'm still freaking out about it. It's like no one is watching you. You're okay. Just keep something going and get it back together when you can.
Yeah. This is something
that took me a long time to learn.
This is something I'm figuring out more and more as time goes on, which is that people hear with their eyes.
Sure. They don't make a face.
Yeah, don't make a face. I can't tell you how many bands I've seen. I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but like how many bands I've seen that it's like the musicianship is okay, it's passable, but the production is just
excellent,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And not to mention too, like the personas, the people on stage, are they're great. They have great interaction with the audience. You know, they connect on that level. And so a lot of times you can like sell your way out of a mediocre or even a bad performance. And
by the showmanship.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That sells more than anything. In fact, it's probably been one of the biggest daggers over time because, you know, like I went to Berkeley with the idea of like, I'm going to become this great and amazing guitarist. And as time has gone on, it just the truth has been pounded into me that like my guitar skill might be one of the least important things in the band. You know,
that's a gut shot.
People, you know, when we play on stage, it's much less about how well I actually play and much more about
the showiness
and how good the songs are that you choose.
Yeah, people love it when you play behind your head.
They
go nuts for that.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Do a solo behind my head, you know, or if I jump out into the crowd or whatever, play with people, you know, throw picks out into the audience. We have a challenge in the middle of the show called Fear the Beer where we do a drinking contest.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And like, yeah, people go nuts for that stuff. That's a lot of fun. It has nothing to do with how well I play guitar on stage.
Exactly.
You know, it's cool if you can do that, but it's the cherry on top. You know, it's not the base of the cake. It's almost not even the frosting anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, the value of a well-written song and a great, you know, showmanship and even production value is, you know. I keep joking, like, someday we're going to be able to just replace ourselves with virtual people, and then we'll just sit back and watch the show.
Yeah.
You know, we won't even be on stage anymore.
That reminds me of, like, how simple pop songs are. Because a lot of them are, you know, 4-chord songs.
Right.
So it's like you don't need to learn that many chords on guitar. You can just be like 1, 2, 3, 4 and have the whole song down. But there's this YouTube video. I don't remember if you remember it. This guy's like, all right, here we're going to do it. And he plays bassoon.
Oh.
Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
And he's like, here's the hook.
Yeah.
He's like, here's the hook. And then people who are able to do like the looping and layer stuff live is really cool to me. Like, here, let's use this ostinato, which is you play a phrase and then it just repeats over and over again. And then you can just layer loops like that. And then, okay, now I'm going to sing live with it, you know, and you recorded all those loops. I think that's excellent. You know, where it's just like, it's pretty simple to put together something that's catchy.
Yeah.
If you have the right tools.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, simplicity, simple sells, I think is the, you know, and
yeah, not everyone's listening to 2112 all the way through.
Bummer. I mean, it's a great experience.
It is.
But it's mostly for us nerds.
I know.
There's an old joke, you know, what's the difference between a rock musician and a jazz musician?
I don't know.
Rock musician plays 5 chords to 10,000 people, and a jazz musician plays 10,000 chords to 5 people.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. Dagger to the heart.
It is a dagger, and it's a shame because there is some crazy cool stuff in there, but like, you know, most people who...
It's niche.
Yeah, most people who use their iPhones, like, they don't care about the technical specs. They care about the features.
Right.
You know, they care about the benefits, maybe is a better way of saying.
Sure.
Right? And so, you boil it down to, like, what is the phone going to do for you? It's like, they don't care. Like, most of them don't really care. Like, oh, look, they've got the new A14 chip or whatever they're putting in there nowadays.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, look, it's got 21 megapixel camera. It's like, none of them care about that. It's like, tell me about, you know, like, just say it takes better pictures and we're fine.
How much storage does it have?
How much storage does it have? Yes, exactly.
That's my number 1 criteria.
Will it fit in a cup holder?
It's a big one.
Yeah, so.
Will it fit in my pocket?
Yeah.
In my tiny little baby hands. Will it fit in my hands?
Yeah, no, simple sells. It's an unfortunate, and teenage Alex is yelling at me right now. He's screaming. You know, like if you were just a better guitarist, they would recognize your greatness, but they don't. It's like you can't change human condition.
Yeah.
You know, you can either choose to accept it or deny it and then decide if you want to go along with it. It depends what your goals are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that took a long time for me to get over that. So yeah.
All right. That's all I got. I'm tapped out.
I could probably come up with a few more, but that's okay. We'll wrap it up here for today. So anyways, thanks for joining the podcast officially on episode number 7. That's a lucky number, which means that this podcast is going to hit 2.8 million views. I'm calling it right now.
Okay.
You know.
I'll share it.
Hey, perfect. All right. Or maybe 280 or maybe just 28. I got those numbers from a tarot card somewhere. So, or a Chinese, a cookie.
Fortune cookie?
Yeah. So.
Beware of grape with wooden mallet.
Oof. Anyways, my name is Alex Bennett.
And I'm Robin Bennett.
Thanks for joining the podcast. We'll see you guys next time.